Today's Friday the 13th, 2025. 22 years ago, I took an incredibly bold step on my adoption search journey. I had had an address that I had received from a search angel. Search angels are volunteers who help adopted persons and parents of origin find one another. Uh, I had an address for a little bit of time, and it was in Newport, Rhode Island. I was working in New York at the time, but it was a summer Friday, and I'd gone home to Rhode Island for the weekend on a Thursday night. And on my drive home from New York to Rhode Island, I have this feeling that tomorrow was the day that I was going to take a little ride to Newport. So I called my friend Wendy, a dear friend, a long time kind of comrade on my adoption journey in terms of having conversations and her being a listening ear. And I said, I think tomorrow we should take a ride to Newport. And she was like, let's go. So we got in the car, had really no idea what we were going to do. We had a name, we had an address. This was a known address for my mother of origin, Helen June. On the way up there, I was like, well, what are we going to do? Like, what's our plan? Um, we said we were going to tell the people that were there, if it wasn't my mother of origin, that we were doing a school project on family history and one of our family members lived there. Not completely uh, uh, untrue. So anxiety, all the things, everything's coming up, but I was steadfast. I like that was the day it was going to happen. We ended up getting there, going up to the door, knocking on the door. It was this beautiful little modest home going into Newport. A woman answered the door. Lovely woman, probably in her 60s. Hi, can I help you? So, hey, we're students. We're doing this project for a class. We think a relative might have lived here. I guess we looked safe enough. She said, come on in. Once I got into the house and I looked around, I was like, I can't lie. I can't lie. I have to tell the truth. So I said, I'm an adopted person. I am looking for my birth family, and I believe that my mother and my siblings might have lived here. It's like the the universe started like vibing in a whole different way. She said, "Oh, come in and sit down." So I look at my friend. My friend looks at me. We're like, "Okay." I think she probably offered us something to drink. So wholeheartedly lovely. Chip, she says, Chip, Chip. She tries to go find Chip. Chip is Barbara's husband. They live in the house. She says, you are never going to believe this. I said, well, try me. She said, we're adoptive parents. They're white, and they adopted two black children, also having had children born to them. So they had a similar family makeup as I did. They were Yale professors. Well, B worked at Yale. Barbara worked at Yale, and Chip was a Yale professor. He was an artist, and they were very active in the open records movement in Connecticut, Rhode Island. How on earth do you encounter the exact right people at the exact right time? Then we were talking, and you know, I don't, I know exactly what happened, but I was sort of felt like I was living in a movie. And I kept looking at my friend like, "Are you like taking notes? Are you?" Because they were throwing out names, and they hadn't known Helen, but they knew people who knew Helen, and they knew that she had been in the house before them. The house had very telltale signs of her and who she was in Newport, which is just like this amazing spirit. Did a lot of work on this restored ship, that they did movies and things. There was a piece of movie set in one of the children's bedrooms. Then they call in some reinforcements. Chip's brother was called in because he knew my mother of origin. And he came in the door and was like, "You look so much like one of the twins. Uh, you, you have you have Helen's smile." And he described in detail how I looked like people. I had never had anybody tell me I looked like anybody that was related to me, ever. So I was like, okay, 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 okay. What is happening? What is happening? Fudd Benson was is a an artist, a facial sculptor, world renowned, and he has a photographic memory. What adopted person who has never been told they look like anybody in their life that's related to them has the opportunity to sit with someone who knew her family of origin and could describe their facial features in detail as it relates to yours? Okay, it gets better, it gets better, it gets better, it gets better, and more wild. There were a lot of names being thrown around, people who knew her. Like it was as if the universe was really conspiring to bring me closer to Helen and my family of origin. We sat with Chip, Barbara, and Fudd for a little while. They gave me one name in particular that was crucial to me getting in touch with Helen. The person's name was Pat. Pat and Helen were very good friends. They were single moms, both living in Newport, raising children of similar ages. And they were described as best friends. I have a number for Pat. Oh, meantime, one of the children of Chip and Barbara, one of the adopted persons, was in the area, happened to be visiting, and I got to meet her. Wild. Uh, I get a hold of Pat. I tell Pat what's happening, where I am. I'm sitting with Chip and Barbara. They told me to call you. Fudd, that he knew. Yeah. So I call Pat. Pat's like, it's a little bit foggy, but she's like so lovely. So she's like, of course she remembered Helen. And then she was like, oh my gosh, this makes all kinds of sense. This makes all kinds of sense on what was happening at the time and certain things. She remembers coming over for coffee as she did most mornings. And one morning she was a little bit early, and my mother of origin, Helen, kind of ran quickly back to change and put on a different item of clothing, likely to hide her pregnancy. Mind you, Helen was 32 when this was all happening, my mother of origin. But Pat says to me, April, I will do anything to help you. One, Helen was a dear friend. We've lost touch, but she was a dear friend. But two, and maybe more importantly, I am a mother of origin. I'm a birth mother. I am looking for my son because I have a congenital lung disease and I want him to know. So, in the course of several hours on Friday the 13th, 2002, I 2003. I had met two, several people who had a direct connection to adoption, one as an adoptive family and one as a family of origin. And all were on Team April to help me connect with Helen. Okay, so I'm talking to Pat. Pat says, I don't have much info. Helen and I lost touch, but my daughter, Rachel, has connection or did have connection to your siblings. And when actually went to visit them, Helen had moved to Hawaii after Newport. That's a whole other story for another day. She moved my siblings and she to Hawaii very suddenly, very quickly, without really anybody knowing why. Pat gets me in touch with Rachel. Rachel's like, my mom told me that I am to help you no matter what. I, this is a little weird, but I'm going to do it because she's my mother and I am going to help you. She had pictures, which I got later. She had a phone number. She had a phone number. She said, I don't know. Helen sometimes had a phone, sometimes didn't. But this is the phone number, and I think it could be hers, but it also might be your sibling, Debbie's, and her husband, Randy. They may or may not even give you any information, or they're law enforcement folks, they're protective, and so good luck. Let me know how you make out. Wendy and I, this is all while we're still in Newport, so we go to the wharf where Helen had a lot of connections. We couldn't find someone who was meant to, who knew Helen and was part of the wharf, kind of, he ran the wharf. Um, and I think we had lunch. I had a stiff drink, and then we drove back to Westerly. I had a phone number. I had a phone number. Still Friday the 13th. My friend Wendy at the time had a restaurant, and we parked outside of her restaurant. Restaurant's on a bridge, and we sat in the car. And I had a cell phone then, and I don't know, it was like one of those things where you didn't call long distance. I don't know if that even makes sense, but that's what I remember. I remember calling Hawaii was a big deal, and it was going to be expensive, but and I never thought that I'd be reaching out by phone. I had been involved in search and reunion support groups and talked to a lot of people about their search journey. And I always thought my style would be to write a letter or send a package. I, I didn't picture it being so real time. I wanted to give Helen the grace and the space to receive me if she wanted to receive me. Uh, so I'm with Wendy. Wendy was so in it to win it with me, and I think she pushed me at all the right intersections. You know, sometimes folks on the journey with you that aren't adopted are like here for the drama and the made for TV movie aspect of this stuff. That's not how Wendy was in this moment. She pushed me right when I needed to because I wasn't sure I wanted to call. And then I think part of the conversation had been, and between she and I, um, the way the day had moved so fluidly, slow, so effortlessly, at least in the transactions, not in the emotional lift, but in the logistics were all so pristine and so just perfect that I felt like it was the right time. I felt like it was the right time. So, with her support and her energy, I dialed the number. It rang. A man answered. I said, Hi, my name's April. I'm calling from Rhode Island. I'm looking for Helen. He says, Do you have her number? I said, Nope, I don't. He says, Oh, it's 8675309. I was like, What? Oh, I was like, thank you so much. Have a great night. Oh, good goddamn, I had the number. I had Helen's number. I had my birth mother's number. Years, years of wondering, being in pain, being in curiosity, being in identity hell, um, being in abandonment hell. Uh, I had her phone number. I had her phone number. So of course I was going to call. I took a beat, said a prayer, took a deep breath. I couldn't be a blubbering mess on the phone. This was long distance. I needed to be clear, grounded. So I call. She answers the phone. Hi. Hello. Hi, my name is April. I'm calling from Rhode Island. I never realized that I would be calling you. I always thought maybe this would go differently. However, today has been a day, and I was in Newport. I met some folks, and they have led me to you. I believe that you, Helen, are my mother of origin, my birth mother. Fairly, a bit of space and time, and she said, "Oh, yes, yes, yes." I don't believe she said, "Yes, I am your birth mother." She said, "Yes, April, I always wondered what happened to you." I then started to probably flow a little bit. Well, I have wonderful parents. I have a really nice life. I am happy and successful, and I wanted to know you. And she said, my life was very different in Newport, and now I live in Hawaii. It's peaceful. And I said, well, I would very much like to get to know you and maybe meet one day. Could we exchange like addresses, and maybe I can send you some pictures, maybe you can send me some pictures. And when I asked her to send me some pictures, she laughed a little. It was this like weird sort of uncomfortable laugh. And I don't know if she said this out loud, but I think I felt it. She was like, why would you want pictures of me? And that was a turning point in the conversation where there was some clear discomfort. I think she mentioned that no one knew about me. And she did say she was willing to communicate via letter. And then we hung up the phone. I didn't cry when we were talking, but as soon as I hung up the phone, I just started to weep. I mean, I know the intersection of emotion well, being happy and also angry on my birthday, being so celebratory and also somber on Mother's Day. This was new. This was a raw elation, a deep, gut-wrenching heartbreak, like this ridiculous sense of knowing how friggin' brave I was in that last 12 hours and just in my life period. It was absolutely everything that I it's not, I don't know what I imagined. I didn't imagine calling her. I didn't imagine finding people along the way at every step that were so, so understanding of my journey. So on this day, Friday the 13th, 2025, I am holding space for myself and anybody who has and is on this journey of search and discovery, whether you're adopted or otherwise, because I think folks are on this journey and they're not adopted. Adoption's unique. Be bold, be brave, look after yourself. This journey wasn't and isn't ever about the transactions and the logistics. It is about the transformations, the relationships, the intention, the intentionality of making sure you're looking after yourself and you're healthy. Because it is a heavy, heavy lift. For anyone who is on the journey and wondering if their journey is on the right timing and in the right time, it is. If it's your time and your timing, it is absolutely the right time. No one can tell you when and how to move forward on this journey. Find the people who will walk beside you, not push you too hard or hold you back. Be open to what the universe will bring you and the divine timing of things. And just know that you deserve to have connections to your family of origin under whatever circumstances. You must look after your own personal safety. You must understand how much of this journey impacts our emotion and our emotional constitution and our bodies and our spirit. We deserve to know. And just so grateful on this Friday the 13th, of reflecting on it many, many years later, of all that I've been able um, to feel and do and to lead in my own life and on behalf of others, for the community. And thank you for being part of it. And a big shout out to my dear friend Wendy, who I just spoke to. I have to bring her on the podcast to reflect, and also to Chip and Barbara Benson, Pat Hagenauer, Rachel, like the angels that came in. I have so many more layers to this, but this is the reflection for this day, 20 plus years later on Friday the 13th. Thanks for listening.